Hello everyone, this video is gonna be talking a little bit about the bad part of the curse, right? The curse user and why so many curse people fail to play on the competitive level or even to an average to high PvP level. And why curse right now is struggling quite a bit to have a place in the game. Let's start by talking about curse damage. The way I already explained on the last video, how you can increase your curse damage and how curse damage works, how curse explosion damage works, is directly affecting how we are countered as well. Right now, the reason why it's really hard to play curse is because curse is a class that is effectively a nuker, a bomber. If you curse an enemy nowadays, let's say like that, I can put this dot is doing 2000 damage per second on the enemy. And in this game, a lot of dots don't do anything. And that's because there's a lot of cleans in the game, there's a lot of healing over time in the game, and basically, even health regen is absurd in this game. Which means like it can leave a very nasty dot on the enemy, but a lot of times, even more on competitive guilds or more like PvP guilds, they're always gonna be up with Flash Wave or Healing Touch and a bunch of other things that will affect the regeneration or the health like recovery of the enemy. So curses really on itself they don't do much. You applying, for example, Healing Cut on the enemy is gonna do a lot more damage. Funny enough, on the enemy, effective like reducing their HP or like putting them in a rough position than putting a bunch of dots in the enemy. It's kind of rough how like you can leave an enemy with your full max dots and that's not even gonna move their HP sometimes. So that's a big part of why curse on itself is really bad because curse is not instant damage. It's not even significant damage a lot of times on PvP. It's not pressure damage. It's different from like a spear or a GS or a staff that's gonna do instantly through 2, 3, 4, 5, 10k damage, right? That damage is gonna be affecting the user instantly, right? Which can lead to combo burst or like to pinning the guy down. That's the big problem with curse, and there's not really much that you can do around that because of how the game works. Uh, so we end up being the class that have to one-shot the enemy or at least burst a lot of the enemy HP to be effective, and that's a big problem. From someone that have been playing Curse for almost a year now and played for a long time during Tier 1. The same thing happened on Tier 1. The Curse was in a decent to like okay position on damage, but as soon as more gear hit the game, as runes got added into the game, as artifacts got added into the game, it was more and more defense, more and more HP, and while the offensives does help with getting more heavy attack, we don't get damage on itself. We get more procs, and that is crit and heavy. We get more higher numbers on those, which leads to more procs of those. We don't really get a higher increase on the base damage in comparison. For example, we don't have more skill damage boosts in the reverse. We got a lot of skill damage resistance on runes and artifacts. We don't get a lot of increase on the base damage, but we have been getting a lot of increase on the resistances for it. For example, on the flat defense, on the flat HP, I have seen tanks reaching upwards to 60,000 HP, which is just insane. Because even if I get really lucky on my curses, if I get heavy on the procs, if I get everything right, do the best time possible, I'm at max gonna be hitting like 35 to 40,000 curse explosions, and that's like on the very luckiest scenario possible, and like full buff and everything. So it's getting harder and harder to one-shot tanks and healers, and there's a bunch of nuances that affect that. And that's why I want to talk about this video and the position of curses and why you don't see a lot of curse players on endgame or like you don't see a lot of competent curse users is because it's really hard to get to the point that you can min-max your damage and do one taps on people. For example, you can see me right now. I'm on 7,074 combat power. I almost have maxed out on the heroic traits and the normal traits for both of my legendary gear. Everything else is based on max out. All my one masters are maxed out. My runes are basically almost best in slots in everything, like, or at least the closest that you can get on a min max level, like 80 to 90% of the best possible rune that you can get on that slot. I have chaotic runes for like a lot of things, but those things don't really add up to damage. They, most of the times they're either gonna help you on defensive or on proccing 2x's with heavy or even your crit procs, but they don't increase your base damage, and your base damage is gonna limit how much you can do to one tap a person. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about, is that adding the earrings added a lot of magic defense, added HP, and upgrading the runes also added HP, and also the legendary gear not only added HP but also added magic defense. So you can see how rough it is right now to play curses. There is a lot of things that have been added to the game, and they won't up to make people more tankier, have more HP, have more magic defense, which will all directly affect your curse explosion damage. That's why even for me, that have everything almost maxed out, I'm almost playing at the edge of the curse damage, or at least without crit rate on the heavy, I cannot do much compared to before, and that's normal because the game is progressing and the damage is not following up on the curse aspect, at least. So that's why you see so many curse players giving up on the wand or stopping playing off the wand, because this is just status diff on your face. There's not much you can do about it because that's how the status on the games works. Now let's talk about other things that are frustrating, why a lot of people quit curse on itself. There's a lot of things that are wonky. For example, right now we got so many bugs on the one. One of the biggest bugs on the Ray of Disaster. The Ray is literally not doing damage, so you're losing a big part of your kit. And all of those things take, like, for example, Ray is gonna be bugged out for a whole month. That's 30 days without using the only weapon that is an alternative to an ARCHBOSS weapon for the 1 DPS. So the only weapon that you can have viable right now is TEVENT WAND and Dagger 1. And Dagger is bugged for 30 days almost. So it's insane, and it's understandable why a lot of people quit the class, because it's really frustrating to play the class. Other things that comes to my mind is, for example, the way the dot works. For example, the Decaying Touch is such a slow projectile. It's such a buggy projectile. It's mega slow, takes a long time to reach the target, and the target can see it coming and can literally block from a mile away. Like, it's crazy how slow the Decaying Touch is. Look at this. It's insane how slow this skill is. And there's a big factor as well on the Decaying Touch. While a lot of skills in the game got updated, so I can jump and cast Touch of Despair, as you can see, which is really nice because you can do a lot of more fluid gameplay. You cannot do that with the Decaying Touch. The Decaying Touch doesn't have air cast, and the Decaying Touch can also be cancelled by movement. So if I start casting move, you can see it cancels. So that's really frustrating and really annoying, and a big factor of the Decaying Touch as well. It like I said, it cancels, so if you don't have a lot of attack speed, your animation is really slow and can lead a lot of times for you to cancel it mid-term or cancel it with a parry or die before casting it. So I really wish they would improve on the Decaying Touch as well, to change to be more dynamic, so I can cast that on the air. Same for the Cursed Explosion. As you can see, I cannot cast on the air, which is really weird because I can cast Karmic on the air. So I can do a Karmic spread on the air, but I cannot explode on the air. So those nuances really weigh down on the DPS, on the 1 Dagger or like 1 DPS overall. It makes the class less fluid and makes everything a lot more clunkier. So I really hope they change that in the future. They fix the bugs on the class, they fix Ray of Disaster, and they change the Decaying Touch and Cursed Explosion to be more dynamic. But that's just a niche on the gameplay mechanical part. Let's talk about another problem that we have right now, which is the parry. As many of you know, the Cursed Explosion got changed to be only a single tap when you explode. There's the ball on top, and then it explodes and does the damage in a single instance. Before it was 2 instants of damage. One was instant after you cast the Curse Explosion, and then the other one was after 1 second. So you would have 2 parts of damage that would make damage a lot more consistent, not only to check evasion on hit users, but also because it wasn't that obvious about the Curse Explosion. I don't think the display on itself is bad, I just think it's really frustrating to have your class be fully dependent on a very long combo that you have to properly plan and stack. So I have to check cooldowns, check buffs, check my buffs, check the enemy buffs, because if the enemy has Blast Barrier, I'm never gonna be able to one-tap him. Check all of that, boom, 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 spread to hit the combo, all of that to hit the combo, and the guy can deny my entire bar, my entire setup, everything that I did with 1 kill. There's no other class in the game that gets denied this badly in the game. Because if you're playing other things, let's say a staff, you're gonna have your fireball, your serial fireball explosion, your meteors, right? And all of that is instant damage or damage checks. There's gonna go, like, if you parry one thing, you're not gonna be able to parry other things. So that's one really frustrating thing about the Wand, and that's why a lot of people give up. It's really predictable. You can work around those things if you're playing, for example, SNS. You can chain the guy after your Curse Explosion. That means the guy is gonna be on a CC animation of the chain or stun the guy, and he's gonna die because he's not gonna be able to parry. And with Curse, there is the way that you can do, which is by sleeping the target. So if you have the instant sleep mastery on the Curse Nightmare, and you Curse Explosion and sleep, the guy is 99% of the time, if he doesn't have a script or like fast reactions on the Purification Stone, he's gonna die because he's not gonna be sleeping and not gonna be able to parry the explosion. But there's a big problem with this, and the problem is that Karmic is limited to 3 curses, and sleeping counts as a curse. So if I'm using Touch of Despair and Decaying Touch, I already have 3 curses. That means if I put a sleep on the guy and Karmic spread is not gonna spread the sleep, which means I cannot explode. That means the sleep is basically useless in 99% of the scenarios. Not only the sleep is mega useless right now, because sleeping people will wake them up with your own masteries. So if I use Falling Flower, or let's say even Time Bomb, or let's say even my own mastery, Vampiric Onslaught, it's gonna wake the guy from the sleep. So you can literally cast sleep and it's gonna instantly wake up the guy from your own sleep skill casting and proccing other masteries, which is insane. So sleep is terrible and there's no really kill confirm. So that's why Curse Explosion is really hard to pull right now. Another one of the reasons. Let's talk about another reason why Curse Explosion right now sucks. The reason why it sucks is because skill damage boost and skill damage resistance is mega unbalanced, and that's from runes and gear overall. But you can see you can get skill damage boost on your weapons, right, and your 2 weapons. But did you know you can get like skill damage resist in many other things? For example, you can get, let's see, one piece of gear. Let me change something here. If you go to your bracelet, I'm quite sure it has skill damage resistance. You can put triple skill damage resistance here. You're already outnumbering your skill damage boost from your weapons with 1 gear that doesn't have status. So you're not losing like base points for that. If I want to do that on my weapon, I'm gonna have to lose 4 dex, 4 strength, 4 perception, whatever it is. I'm losing base damage for that. So it's not viable. And you can do the same on certain other things. I think the belt also have skill damage resistance as well. So you can do that on 2 pieces of gear, the skill damage resistance. And I'm quite sure you can do that on earrings. No, not on earrings, sorry. But you can get that on a bunch of different pieces of gear, which does lead to the case of like struggling to get enough skill damage boost to counter that. This is a big factor on why your damage has been decreasing a lot. That with the magic difference, like I said, but there's another big factor, 2 big factors, which comes on the runes. The fact that you can get artifacts on the right here, if I'm not mistaken, you can get on the right artifact CC resistance and weaken resistance. You can get on the, I think down left, I don't have anything here, but I'm quite sure on those 2 down here, you can get CC resistance and weaken resistance. And the only place you can get weaken chance on the artifacts, it's on your solar stone, and it's mega hard to get something useful. So it took me like 6,000 boxes to get this, and it's not even like a perfect thing with good weaken chance and CC chance. So that's a big factor on why curses are really hard to build, because of weaken resistance and curses counting as a CC. There's a video that I made explaining weaken chance and why it's really hard to build versus weaken resistance, and how hard it affects your curses, because your curses counts as CC. So that means it's not like evasion, that you're gonna have 1000 evasion and that's gonna be 15% or 50% evasion rate. No, with curses, if you have like 100 extra weaken resistance or 200 extra weaken resistance, that's almost 50% like resistance versus all your curses, which is wild. Like, the numbers don't match up, so that's a big factor as well on why curses can get very frustrating versus weaken resistance. And finally, the last factor that affects it all, debuff duration. Debuff duration directly affects how long your dots last. If I have versus someone that have 50% debuff duration, that means my dots will last half of the usual duration. So here it lasts 16 seconds on a dummy. If I use the user has 15% debuff duration, it's gonna last only 9 seconds. So that's half of my damage output on the cursor explosion denied, and there's zero counterplay to it. There's nothing I can do against it because there's no counter status for debuff duration. The buff duration can only be decreased on the user. I cannot increase my curse timers on the enemy. That is really brutal, and there's something that definitely ruins the game for the curse users. So all of those things combined make really unviable for curse users to, grow on PvP unless they are maxed out. And even maxed out people like me struggle on a lot of things. So I hope this video can open your eyes to the curse situation in the game right now and why you are struggling so much to play curse.